Phoenix, let the world know the truth. Expose the lies, study the bloodlines. The Aboriginal Phoenix, let the world know the truth. Expose the lies, study the bloodlines. The Aboriginal drive for the Spanish, Dutch, and the British arrived. Saying we was from Africa, stolen birthright. That's triple, something that a dirty war would do. Claim your nationality of the land, you get screwed. So we studied the background, the treaties you wrote. Fake as history, we ain't going here on no boat. Frontin' like you indigenous to the land, you disgust me. Tomahawk back in our hands, it's getting ugly. You run around screaming black power, cause sales is the truth. Rivers fell with a bull and high hell. Native Americans but hurt, can't deal, cause they know damn well the relatives ain't real. Respect the Aborigine, this land is ours, you know you all. You still a guest, motherfucker. I had one little, two little, three little Indian. Grandma's for society, keep killing them, telling me. I had one little, two little, three little Indian. Grandma's for society, keep killing them, telling me. House nigga, real nigga, fake nigga, feel nigga. My skin ain't black, what the deal, nigga? Salute on my real shit, it's Aborigines, owners of the land and every goddamn tree and every goddamn sea. Invaders ever cross, step foot on the land and you can step the fuck off. Breathe, you gon' make us swing the sacred tomahawk. Fucking around with us with that black cop style. Fake pics of slave ships, that's the reference. Rape with African blood, you gon' need more evidence. I'm American, Aboriginal, indigenous, you both get DNA test. That shit is rhetoric, stay home. Aboriginal, get out. You civil rights acts, all you can eat, big out. It's Stockholm syndrome, mix gets out. Phoenix Moon got the antidote, get that shit out. Me, wow. Rapping about my birthright, fuck a freestyle. Teach each man, each woman, each child. Black race really Indians indeed now. Man, they indeed now. Holly Dog, Title 18, G goes. Pilgrims get big gold with Phoenix and Beast Mode. Bring them up peoples out of the sleep. Oh, we ain't black, colors, Africans or Negroes. I had one little, two little, three little Indian. Grandma's for society, keep killing them, telling me. I had one little, two little, three little Indian. Grandma's for society, keep killing them, telling me.
Osio, Halito, Sego, Kamawangabo. What's up, beloved ones? It's a beautiful day in Indian country. What's happening with it? Everything healthy? Shout out to the family. What's up, cousin Davida? Hey, V. Hi, Queen D. What's up, Lloyd? Halito, Nick. How y'all beautiful ones doing? What's up, Ty? Yeah, so the FBA. Black folks running around here stealing. I'm going to get right to it. Right? We was on Clubhouse rocking out last night because, you know, they pinged me to these rooms. I stay in my own lane. I only fuck with the Indians, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, I only fuck with the Indians. I don't really be messing around with the rest of these folks on these other different spaces. You know, I stay in my lane. I love going to different spaces that other Indians have. I will be in those zones, but I don't really leave our area. Occasionally, I'll go sit and listen, you know, fuck with the celebrities or something like that here with a couple of, you know, some of their subject matter, different things. I just want y'all to know, too. Let me just tell you, I found some of the folks that be trolling. Star definitely got the Trolls Nation. Those people that be on Clubhouse, they be reporting content and shit back to Star. Hassan Campbell, that dude Bullets Gotti that was calling us bitches and stuff like that, that nigga's a moderator on Hassan Campbell, right? So these people, they be trolling. People get our drop from motherfucking Clubhouse and then they take it to the YouTube channels. Go ahead, I wish they would. I wish they would. I wish they would. Yes, so that Trolls Nation, you know, and they don't quote people. They don't give you your motherfucking props and shit. But I'm telling y'all, I know for a fact that they're absolutely pulling up, checking out our Clubhouse content. You know what I'm saying? And they are going, taking little bits and pieces and putting it on their social media platforms. That is an absolute fact. Trolls Nation was reporting live. I'm listening to y'all on one device on Clubhouse, and these motherfuckers, I'm also watching Star from Star Buck Wild. This is a couple of weeks ago that this happened. This isn't something that happened in the last day or so. This happened a couple of weeks ago, but you know, I'm just talking about it now. But I know for a fact, the whole WAC 100, they be definitely reporting stuff about WAC 100 when they put it out to different social media. I did see all of that. So they be definitely trolling for real. They troll shit is for real. Peace, cousin Ish. How you doing, beloved? They definitely be motherfucking trolling. So just so y'all know, they be on it. So anyway, this is to piggyback off of what we was talking about with the freedmen, and it's a really weird thing because I hear these FBA niggas, these pro-black folks, I hear them, and they've been talking shit about freedmen, and now they have now said that not only do Africans owe, they also said that all of us Indians owe, and white people have to pay them for enslaving them. I shit you not. And this is the new spin that these motherfuckers was putting into the ether regarding freedmen. Then they all called themselves freedmen. So now, again, I had to ask them where and when were they emancipated, because that is what would be the title. And it would have to be some sort of manumitted act. Someone has to free you from a condition of servitude in order for you to have that title freedman. So now there's some, if you want to narrow it down, I ask specific questions. I ask for the military records, specifically because we know that there's a difference. And shout out to Mr. Waldo. He definitely made it very clear. And I elaborated also on the fact that when they're talking about doing the census in Indian Territory, they have who they call state Negro, and then they had the tribal Negroes. So now, somewhere in between them establishing the illegal Dawes Rolls, these motherfuckers have also now invited African freedmen to help themselves to the Indian shit. Let's argue. Let's fucking argue. And the reason why I say this, they can't prove if they were Union. They can't prove if they were fucking Confederate. They don't have no tangible information. They just ended up saying this is going for specifically who we was talking to in the Cherokee Freedmen tribe yesterday, right? In regards to that conversation. And this is where he know that we ain't no motherfucking lightweights neither, right? But what we did find out is them trying to Africanize the freedmen proves that the tribes actually broke the fucking treaty because the Africans had no fucking interest in the land. They had no interest or ties to the land whatsoever. Have no business having any type of attachments in that regard. And there's two types of patents as well. There's going to be two. There's the one that comes from the United States, and then there's going to be the one that comes for the tribe. So these niggas going to have to stop lying. Just because they got a patent that has them in Oklahoma, don't make them a part of no tribe. And if they are now, and they say in African, we got a problem. I see a few of y'all in there, and definitely any questions, you gotta, let me know, because I'm on for getting to the bottom of it. And at the end of the day, there's a whole bunch of variables that these people gonna have to answer to, and it ain't really my job to teach. It ain't really my job to teach those variables. But when I know they lying, I'm gonna jump out there like whack-a-mole, and I'm gonna let them know that I know they lying. So if they, and then there's these other problems that they're not even talking about. Because tell me why they disappeared from U.S. code. And what they're speaking of, and I keep going back to the Civil War because I need them to admit or to even understand that their grandfathers perhaps may be a part of the ones that had signed the treaties with Jefferson Davis. What's so fucking hard for them to understand that, right? So hard for them to understand that. So when they Africanize the freedmen the way that they are trying to, right? And this comes with a lot of different people that's pushing buttons behind the scenes where these niggas come up with these wild assertions that they can't fucking back up. But then there's us, the people that fuck with genealogy hard, definitely one like me that's gonna go all the way to the limit, right? Because I'm gonna speak in with an objectivity as if I am not only the devil's advocate, but I'm also the person that wants to guarantee a win, right? So there's different things that I'm going to make sure that I present that Black people don't look at. This is why they have to steal everybody else's motherfucking history, because it's too challenging for them to fucking find out who it is exactly the fuck that they are. It's too much for them. They'd rather be told. They'd rather be told. So when they're acting like they're supposed to get reparations for slavery, what were they slaves for? Now, unfortunately, there's some people that do fit a pretty fucked up narrative. And I have never been one of them people that said that there was no Africans here. No, the fuck I didn't. I said the number of slaves that even came into the United States, period. And that's up to and including Africa and excluding them as well. The math ain't mathing. Same thing with these freedmen. So now you got a bunch of state Negroes that ended up in the George Road. So you got $5 Indians and you got 250 niggas running around. So that means the real freedmen that I've always known to be the Indians, right? That may have been prisoners of war and would have had to have been freed after being in one of the, on either side, whether they were in a Union camp or a Confederate camp. So these niggas ain't really taken into account. So now the numbers that Maxine Waters dipping her toe around in. Let me just pull this up. Hold on one second. Boogie in the building. Sister Sally. Warfare K. What's happening with it, baby? Let me pull up Maxine Waters' little small ass numbers, and then we could go into how does this even work? Because how did the Seminoles even have slaves? Like, somebody gonna have to keep it all the way real, and this is what they don't really like to do. So now it's a matter of Black people stealing any and every angle to get in somewhere, and still without motherfucking having the sound facts. So now you got your people, all this time these niggas been talking about $5 Indians. Here go your $2.50 nigga trying to get in somewhere that he don't motherfucking belong, right? Okay. This is shit. These small numbers. Somewhere, the Choctaw had about 2,000, 2,300, something like that. They may have had the most so-called slaves. Then they also indicate how the Chickasaw had a relatively low number, I believe. Seminoles somewhere between 200 and 300, right? Here it is. Let's go by this one right here. And this was very interesting. This is where they're going to have a jagged little pill to swallow, right? Especially the people that have just, so now you know that they have the 250 Negroes and now the $5 Indian. And nobody has ever challenged this because they just assumed that all so-called Black people was going to be freedmen, when we know that, in fact, there's motherfuckers that look like Donald Trump that was, in fact, freedmen. a part of those fucking freedmen. And this is where these black motherfuckers gonna go wrong, stealing other folks' shit. Because they still attaching themselves to everything that may or may not have anything to do with them. Right? You got Cherokee had 2,500 slaves. The Choctaw had 2,349 slaves. The Creek had 1,532 slaves. The Chickasaw had 975 slaves. And the Seminole had 200 to 300 slaves. Now, this is right here is where I have the problem with, because there's no time frame for this, right? And we know for a fact the establishment of Oklahoma didn't happen until 1907. So this still means that they would have broken the law to have carry slaves into a non-slave state. Okay? Then the burden of proof is also going to include these motherfuckers having to prove, right? And nobody's ever challenged these motherfuckers. They're going to have to prove if they were state Negroes or they were tribal Negroes. And here's why. Because why in the fuck and how the fuck did the Seminoles have slaves and they've always been resisting the entire time? And they wasn't always thrilled at the fact that they had to merge with the Creeks. When the Seminoles was essentially Creeks for the most part. But they consider the people of Seminoles all mostly runaways. So that may or may not include some Pilgrim Pale people as well. Just for the sake. But for treaty purposes, all of this shit goes against the 1866 treaty that was renegotiated after the tribes went and broke the other treaties from the bottom part of the 1800s, Rabbit Creek, New Echota. They broke all those other treaties essentially, and they had to, especially when they signed the treaty with Jefferson Davis, which wasn't a bad deal. Jefferson Davis promised the Indian tribes that your land that you have now will be yours for time immemorial. What he basically said, as long as the green grass grows and the river flows. Put some smooth ass poetry up in that shit too. And he also offered to match exactly what annuities that the United States already owed them as well. So now, in the interest of them acting like they are so busy, so busy not, wanting to end slavery. It had nothing to do with slavery. It had everything to do with currency. And it was the currency that was attached to the wealth in the motherfucking South that also still had a way to be able to pay the tributes that the United States had to pay out to the tribes. Land for land. They got paid for that. And whoever negotiated their shit, especially on behalf of the Choctaw, it was fucking immaculate because they always still came out on top. They credit references since the 1700s, since they got introduced to it, has been fucking impeccable. They can say what they want. People know damn well by this point in your genealogy, you see exactly where everybody is. The good, the bad, the colonizer, the ugly, the indifferent, the weird, the what the fuck. But yes, you see it all by now. And anybody that doesn't run into these anomalies, you're not really well versed in genealogy, and you can probably sit down and stop acting like you're a teacher of it, right? Because I've seen that too. And here's the problem where all these people did this fake ass genealogy, and they handed out all these Dorswell shits, right? And then told people not to go to their tribes. So when it comes down to the 5 civilized tribes, there's no pause, there's no break, right? And now there's no blood quantum requirements at all. So anybody that has relativity, especially for the Cherokee tribe, as long as you can attach them to the Dorswells, you are not isolated or extracted, right? So if you in fact have a land patent within those territories, everybody that has a land patent, let me make this clear, whether they're Indian or not, everyone that has a land patent, you never hear what these people telling them to do what the next step is. Why the fuck is that? And perhaps I'm the only one that have showed them exactly what the website says. First of all, the United States is not going to fight anybody on their land patent. It is yours for a time immemorial, as long as the United States is standing. Let's start with that. Now, whether or not there's other technicalities within these different jurisdictions, eminent domain, that's not the same thing. I'm not talking about that. But for the most part, especially if it is Indian lands, so therefore people are not telling the truth. And if you have, in fact, got your genealogy done, and you do have your Doors Rolls records, and you are very confident, in fact, in what it is that you have found, I would tell you to take your ass down there and go get what belongs to you and your family. It has nothing to do with the rest of us. Your grandma shit don't got nothing to do with my grandma shit. Like my grandma and grandpa shit ain't got nothing to do with you and yours. Right? So there's a whole bunch of math that ain't mathing. So with that being said, those little shriveled up motherfucking numbers, and of course you can get a more accurate account, but now how they started persuading people, whether or not they persuaded people or insisted in the new implementation of statehood, what does black mean? The same thing with the Missouri Compromise. At this point, they have now made it a legal definition as far as your political status for race, right? In which case, black now means African descent. Period. Fucking dot. Period. Dot. This is what, so when people accepted that, acquiesced to it, that is what that became. Okay? So now you still have in Virginia, in North Carolina, in South Carolina, Alabama, explicably, obnoxiously clear that anybody that has a record of being mulatto in Alabama is absolutely a descendant of an American Indian, like your Dr. John Henry Clark. Nigga talked about Africa for 40, 50 years, right? And never talked about his Indian. Never talked about his Indian. Right? Never talked about his motherfucking. But anyway, so now here's this burden of proof that these Negroes got as they attach themselves to all these freedmen. So now I'm pretty sure that some of these folks, because that was the easy way of being able to gain momentum, probably gain some viewers and likes and shit by telling anybody and everybody, handing them a Doors Rolls. Oh, you got a Mary Johnson? Oh, here's a Mary Johnson. Picking one up the Cherokee Road. I have clips in my archives of motherfuckers saying, oh, and if you don't know, just pick somebody. I've got clips of motherfuckers doing that over the years. I just ain't got time to say something to every little motherfucker, right? All right? But that don't mean I don't see, I don't know that some motherfuckers is absolutely guilty of this shit. And this is why all these years later, I'll be laughing my ass off these motherfuckers. And so do the people that fuck with me be laughing, Negroes, because I ain't never had no packages. There's nothing that I keep or need. I got so much genealogy. I've been doing this while all these niggas was either picking their boogers, still shitting in Pampers, or talking that Hotep, Yakub created the white man in the lab ass shit. I was fucking with grandma and grandpa and this Indian shit and this genealogy shit when the motherfucking genealogists was still alive. When they was still alive. So I don't take that shit personal, and motherfuckers, you shouldn't either. It's some shit I don't gotta take personal. Cause I always came with grandma and grandpa. While these niggas was going with pyramids and all this other fly shit, Lemuria, and all this other extravagant shit, bitch like me came with old dead motherfuckers and whipped everybody motherfucking ass. No grandma killers, and I won't let you take the cornbread. No, you're gonna give us back that. Ain't no bald-headed lady snuck no motherfucking brains and rice in her hair, and now all of a sudden this is out. No. Bring all that shit back. The motherfucking succotash, the lima beans, the goddamn, I'm a wild potato. That's the sweet potato, nigga. That's my tribe. That's my clan. These niggas don't let the African booty scratcher nigga for real, take the motherfucking annual to goddamn Africa. I'm not forgetting that. So these niggas coming from these other spots of submission to these motherfucking dumbass niggas that was teaching their asses the white people was created in the lab and everywhere. Now they so fucking crazy with it They so racist and got these whack ass defense mechanisms. These niggas gotta curse everybody out. The natives, the mongoloids, the this, the that, the that, the that. All this negative shit to say, and motherfuckers still can't shake an Indian out their tree, bitch. You're fucking up relationships. You're fucking up introductions because some of them niggas is your cousin. And I'm going to tell you the truth. And I ain't saying this because I'm bragging. I'm saying this because I know. And I'm saying this because this is the way we design the motherfucking formula. There really ain't no way you can come through this motherfucker and really be applying yourself and don't bump into some of us as cousins. It's absolutely impossible. That's how much the trees done webbed up. That's how many motherfuckers done got to the bottom of this shit. This is how we can shout each other out when we see a motherfucking ancestor that's coming in our tree, nigga. Some of us got 20 and 30 motherfucking grandfathers and grandmothers together, met on the motherfucking social media, different walks of motherfucking life, nigga, and we done found our 6 degrees of separation motherfucking kin, baby. Huh? But we here to get it right. We here to get it right, but they got to tell the true story. Y'all gonna stop lying on white people too. I'm tired of black people. I'm tired of the Aboriginal. I'm tired of them lying on everything that the white people supposedly did, and they not telling the fucking truth. This how you know they ain't been able to get down to the nitty gritty, because it's parts of the shit that ain't desirable. And I'll make sure I'll tell a motherfucker, hey, yo, this genealogy shit is good, bad, and indifferent. Now they want to run around and talk about Black Europeans, Yeah, nigga, Europeans is Europeans. Yeah, I got some Black European ancestry, but they the black kind, not the pale one. Shut the fuck up, nigga. Europeans are European. They all came to conquer my ass. Shut the fuck up. Trying to minimize everything, nigga. That means if you got an African, you gonna stash them. It is what it is, and all of that gimme's got you here. Ain't nothing we can do about the motherfuckers that did it before, so that we can be here talking the shit we talking right now. Ain't you glad they spent that time making magic happen? And it took all of that shit just to get you your ass. Generational curses and all. Generational blessings and all. Right? They acting like they don't want to connect to who they supposed to connect to. It's not really gonna work like that. And then here's this other thing. That's gonna that again they're gonna have to tell me this right here. First of all, let me show y'all this Maxine Water shit. Because I didn't make those numbers up. I didn't make it up. So now when they associate it, it just automatically assumes now that black, because they say black, that they have to, the go-to race is now going to be African American. This is what they're trying to say. As if that is going to supersede even having one African relative is not going to Africanize somebody. And you got 9 generations of American Indians. And that is the same with 1, 2 Europeans. It doesn't, ancestry does not work like that. It does not work like that. That shit, and you'd be surprised what was stamped out by now. Stamped all the way out. And this is where James Baldwin was speaking about, which makes me wonder, was because it was so wise of James Baldwin to leave and go to France, because mixing up with them type of Negroes that was end up boiling and breeding this new breed of motherfucking Kwanzaa, Stokely Carmichael, bitch ass fucking type motherfuckers. These niggas that really, I call them the brick wall, because they just ran people into nowhere fast. And then still years later, people have used so many of their things, in addition to a bunch of shit that white people brought out, like 48 laws of power, and they get fucking nowhere doing this bullshit their way when the culture, the heritage is absolutely the fucking way, and how they feel about it, maintain and preserve it is absolutely the fucking way. And that never even occurring to people. The most simple fucking thing, that family is really where it's the fuck at. Yeah, I just think that's so crazy. But whatever. This is Maxine Waters. These are your small numbers that they're working with, that I told you about, with the small amount of so-called slaves. Now, again, so the burden of proof with this is also going to be what? Now they're going to also have to account for where they were prior to the Trail of Tears. See, because there's no time frame on this. And being that Oklahoma was established in 1907, is these bitches telling me that they have folks enslaved in 1907? Because the time where you see people having freedmen on their documents, it's generally around 1861, because that is really when the orders came out that they were not supposed to have people in any type of peonage or bondage past that specific point. So the actual Civil War was going to enforce that. This is why when they confiscated so-called slaves that couldn't make it to the Union counties, they called them contraband. Right? Things that were confiscated while they were under specific orders, martial law, whatever you want to call it, depending on the community, in which case they had the stronghold over the Confederates. So the only issue that the Confederates had, where was the dead fucking Sultan at then? The Morocco motherfuckers then? Why they didn't do a treaty of peace and more friendship with the Confederate Army like they did with the United States? Because had they recognized them as an entity than other countries, it would have been a whole different fucking story, and the Indians would have won. And the Indians thought that they had a shot of winning with Jefferson Davis that they did not have with the United States. There's that. And there's one instances where some family members felt one way, particularly, and other family members felt another. And this is how this shit shook out. So I want to know why these people, and then here's this here. Let's talk about this. This is going to be U.S. Title 8, U.S. Code Title 8. And they're going to have to explain to me why this was removed and there was never any major stink about it. And it's completely pertinent to them as freedmen, right? So this is where the FBA, assuming these titles, this is if you come across a motherfucker that's beastly like me, I'm going to question you and squeeze you like you ain't been squeezed before, right? Because objectively, they're going to treat you as though you are lying. So why not have every fucking detail that it is to back it up? Why not? Why would you go to a machine gun fight with a fucking slingshot? At least wear steel-toe boots. It might be some landmines in the paddy fields. I'm just saying. Why would you go the way? Because people still thinking like crayon colors. Because people still think that this outcome is supposed to be a crayon color one, like as if you don't have anything to do with family. As if you don't have to contribute anything to your community. But everybody is just supposed to stop what they're doing and make sure that niggas get a check and a fucking Tesla. 40 acres. Whose 40 acres do black people think they gonna get? When we the Indians saying these motherfuckers been squatting on our shit for a long motherfucking time. Who 40 acres do they think they getting? It's a clusterfuck, and you know people didn't really see or look around the corner. And I'm going to tell you how you can tell they didn't look around the corner, because any check they get, you know what can happen. Guess who could turn around and take that check and take niggas to court for that very same check they think they get? Liberia. Right? Niggas might owe them some act right, considering some of these Indian families went over to Liberia and did what? Enslaved people, did the same thing that happened to them over here. Right? And this is a problem. So they could turn right around and say, man, fuck that. These motherfuckers, that, right? They fuck with you for the time being. Until they see that check get exchanged and your shit. And now they want their PC. Because they could prove your family members, right? So you put all your shit in the trust act. Hey, they can prove your family members, all the people, the beneficiaries, have liabilities. It could end up in a whole catastrophic way. And because we U.S. citizens, they may have to pay our motherfucking debt to them. How real niggas want to keep it? How real niggas want to keep it? And think about it. In order to give you motherfuckers take the Indians out of Indian country and remove them to Indian territory, nigga, you still had to remove some Indians to get Indian territory out of that. It was already some other Indians' country. So the 5 civilized tribes are not the only motherfuckers that's over there. Understand that shit. And they're not the only ones that's owed something. But now, in the interest of you have people like the Wampanoag didn't have no motherfucking freedmen that have anything to do with the 5 civilized tribes. So careful what it is that you're saying and careful who it is that you blame it. Every fucking... Now, are you talking about people that you were saying is $5 Indians? They was the natives that enslaved you? Because you acting like my Indian grandma did it, and she did not. That's what I mean by get your story straight. 1 minute, them people over there way more American Indian, they way more native than we could ever be. Well, you know, they're way more native until they was owning your ass. Is that what's happening? Wait a minute, because now they saying, but what they saying is that it's so many of us freedmen that are saying that they're African. Oh, word, nigga, so that means that you're complicit in a conspiracy against the motherfucking Indian. Why do you say that? Because the Africans have no interest in the land. And the Choctaw and Chickasaw Treaty, Article 3 says what? Article 3 said they got 90 motherfucking days to move from around and nobody gets none of this PC, none of this bust down of this 300,000. I think at that time it was 300,000, which was a tremendous amount of money back then. Then Article 4 says, and you know, about those Negroes, the ones that we called Negro, we know we fucked up their identity. Now that they're back with the tribe, you treat them like Indians. Okay, we agree. Those guys are going to be treated like Indians and never to be questioned again. That was in 1866, and here the fuck it is in 2020, the fuck too. And these niggas is openly saying that they Africanized when African slavery was motherfucking outlawed back in 1808. And these niggas is saying 1907 in Oklahoma, where Sarah Rector was cracking oil, where her uncle was running around with bass weaves and protecting the borders and shit. I think it was her Uncle John, because Joseph was her father, or vice versa. But her father got killed by a Moor. A Moor got Sarah Rector's father killed. They went to Mexico to go and do a real estate deal that would have yielded them $40 million motherfucking dollars back then. $40 million. They would have been the Donald fucking Trump of this fucking country. Fuck a Rockefeller. Sarah Rector pops, and he got smoked out there by some Spanish Moor, and his body had to go to Texas. Yeah, that's that dark part of the history these niggas don't talk about. But yeah, that's what happened. So now, where'd they go from here? Why are they going? They're going to have to figure this out. And this got taken out in 1948, I believe, repealed. This is titled U.S. Code 8, Aliens and Nationality. Ooh. You know what I'm doing. Okay. Here it is. So now, U.S. Code 8, aliens and nationality. Hold on, let me just get to the nitty gritty real quick because it's gone. Freedmen. Yeah, they're taken out. It's been excluded. And there was never any argument as to why was it excluded. There was never any, hey, why'd you take this out? This affects us. Nobody said a damn word about it. But nobody really looked to see what it was that was actually excluded. And with that being said, that means something went wrong that they didn't want folks to look at. So as they are now taking people off the land, and keep in mind at this time, you know what they're also still doing? And I just got to say this because people think, you keep the timeline relevant, right? Because at the time where they're doing this, there's the coolie trade that is still happening, right? Still happening. So now I want to direct people to U.S. Code Title 8. Let me share this. This is going to be Section 4 that is completely omitted. And I did find the omitted laws. I did find the omitted laws, right? Out it. See? Chapter 4. Freedmen. Aliens and nationality. Right? And I'm going to bring this up. If they're saying omitted, 61 through 65. Now, none of these motherfuckers could tell you what's in 61 to 65 that is regarding freedmen. That is important, right? So what you are going to notice is that the people that have documentation that marks them as freedmen, specifically in Indian territory, that is who this pertains to. And what it says is widows, definitely descendants of colored troops. The pensions. How come they didn't throw no smoke over it? None of this ended up in any usefulness in material for the Murphy case or the McGirt decision, even though those are within the Creek Nation, right? But with this variable here, let me go to here. Let me actually pull up the treaty because and when you say this, so with that being said, that is the elimination of slavery there at that point, specifically because they can't be egregious to what is happening in the United States, even with their sovereignty, right? So there's dual citizenship, and at this time specifically, even after 1924, they are now all offered to be U.S. citizens, right? Because that was part of the exclusion. The exclusion was American Indians and anybody of African descent. Not saying that the American Indians have African descent. And they've used these wordings and the propaganda of these wordings to manipulate people into accepting different narratives with shit that they can't fucking prove. So when you find those sections, my bad, when you find those sections 61 to 65, that's going to pertain to your granny that lost somebody, right? that's going to pertain to someone that was lost or someone that is also owed money in regards to who they helped, whether it was the Union soldiers, whether it was the Confederate Army. I have documentation where my grandfather Joe gave up horses, which at that time was worth $500 motherfucking dollars, right? Did he get paid for the horse? So some of this land was also confiscated land that they took from the Confederates. They took it from the Confederates to give to other people, right? So now, even in specific treaties, it also includes other people. When I say other Indians, which is refugees, right? So I am a refugee. I fled New York to make a way in for myself in California, right? New York, I was under duress and feel as though I was oppressed in my mother country. So I left and I'm in California. Am I a refugee? Yes, I am. So this would be the same people that lost out in the Confederacy because some of the landowners were removed and automatically assumed to be contraband because the Union soldiers did what? Raped, pillaged, and did a whole bunch of things. So here's one that also, this is an easy target. And this is something that I dislike about the crayon colors reaction to finding resolution and resolve, right? So now the Devil's Punch Bowl. Every Black History Month, they talk about Natchez. They talk about the people that died there, but they don't talk about the Union Army that killed those people, right? One of my favorite movies, I always talk about the movies, The Gangs of New York. And the reason specifically because they have the conscription laws. So here's another instance where these people are lying when they saying that they were slaves of these Indians and these 5 civilized tribes. And here's why. Because they would have to have documentation and inventory that pre-existed them walking in the Trail of Tears. That's that in the Southeast, right? East of the Mississippi. There's that. Then there's also the instance of them going into that territory and not adhering to the Constitution. So now the freedmen are now included, the Cherokee freedmen in particular are now included, but it also demonstrates who they're now saying are Africans, and they're not supposed to have any interest at all. So there's proof that they have discriminated on the brown colored Indians in favor of the Africans that aren't supposed to have any land patents within the tribe. Anybody feeling any different? I dropped the link. I shall drop the link. Again, hold on. So there's some things they're going to have to come up with. Then, again, so specifically, we can just use the Choctaw and Chickasaw. And let me get their treaty so you can see what I'm talking about. And these are the active treaties that they're using, all from 1866. Let's see. And this was July 10th of 1866. Let's see. All right. This is directly from the Choctaw Nation. Hold on, let me share the page. Okay, hold on one second. This is directly. New Choctaw Nation. I'm not sure when it was revised. Okay, so Article 1. Let's see. We're going to skip on down. Article 1, peace and friendship are hereby established between the United States and said nations, and the Choctaws and Chickasaws do hereby bind themselves respectively to use their influence to make every assertion to induce Indians of the plains to maintain peaceful relations with each other, with other Indians, and with the United States. Article 2. The Choctaws and Chickasaws hereby covenant and agree that henceforth neither slavery nor involuntary servitude otherwise than in punishment of a crime whereof the parties shall have been duly convicted in accordance with laws applicable to all members of the particular nation shall ever exist in said nations. There's that. Article 3. The Choctaws and Chickasaws, in consideration of the sum of $300,000, hereby cede to the United States the territory west of the 98th degree west longitude, known as the least district, provided that the said sum shall be invested and held by the United States at an interest not less than 5%, in trust for the said nations, until the legislatures of the Choctaw and Chickasaw nations respectively shall have made such laws, rules, and regulations as may be necessary to give all persons of African descent resident in the said nation at the date of the treaty and their descendants heretofore held in slavery among said nations all the rights, privileges, and immunities included. So now this had to be what they updated it to, because the old treaty does not say that. And I promise this is a motherfucking amendment. And it is because they have added Fort Smith to this in regards to the descendants. This is why when the Cherokees were in court, all of the treaties from 1866 disappeared so that they can do these insertions. Right? Because it had nothing to do with freedmen, respectively, where they had their own different portion within the titles of this. So that's still disenfranchising a whole score of people where where disrespectfully went across treaty lines and have broken them all years, and nobody said a word to them. Nobody. So now this is the myriad of different tactics, right, that they have now utilized and held to this. Let's see. One second. Hold on, one second. Oh, my bad, y'all. My little cousin, showing me his little graduation outfit and all that. Super excited to see them get into it. These kids know that what they want to do in life. I love it. Let me see. Oh, you have, who could change or edit a treaty? The nation can. And these are the things that have been going on while people was in these different groups and all these other different spaces. These are the things, the changes that were happening. As soon as that Murphy decision happened, and I promise this is actually the first time that I've even seen this. Because it does say in the original, it does say that they have 90 days. But this is also the leased land, right? So the people that were there from them, that would kind of make sense. But the way that they speak of as if that's all in totality of the people that were slaves is where it's misleading. So now, again, what does happen, it's almost as if they automatically try to attach those freedmen to that descent when they're actually excluding still the ones that are the bloodline relatives, right? And not African slaves, descendants of Africans. This is the thing. And where did they come from? And where were they enumerated as such anytime in their places, respective places in the Southeast? Where did they acquire them? Was it during, it would have had to have been during this 20-year period of the Trail of Tears up until what? 1866. Which could also be the people that they use to volunteer to help them, add to their numbers. We'll never know. And now that they haven't made any newts about it, here it is now. We get to have an investigation launched to see who it is. So now they do still have this 90-day period, but now those particular people that they had enslaved that were of African descent would also include Italians, Irish, all these other people that were still in these particular areas and had already married into the tribes. But now there's the interest of, were they really enslaved by these $5 people, the people that they were calling $5, or are they all in cahoots to still disenfranchise the American Indian? Got to look at it objectively like that. So let me go back. Hold on one second. Okay, so it also says, in trust for the said nations until the legislatures of the Choctaw and Chickasaw nations respectively shall have made such laws, rules, and regulations as may be necessary to give all persons of African descent resident in the said nation at the date of the treaty and their descendants heretofore held in slavery among said nations all the rights, privileges, and immunities, including the right of suffrage of citizens of said nations, except in the annuities. Okay, so they can't get any money, no monies, and the public domain claimed by or belonging to said nations respectively. And also to give such persons who were residents as aforesaid and their descendants 40 acres of the land and of said nations on the same terms as the Choctaw and Chickasaws to be selected on the survey of said land after the Choctaws and Chickasaws and Kansas Indians have made their selections. So in other words, they get what's left over after they've made their selections of the land provided. And immediately on the enactment of such laws, rules, and regulations, the sum of $300,000 shall be paid to the Choctaw and Chickasaw nations in proportion of 3/4 to the former and 1/4 to the latter, less such the sum, at the rate of $100 per capita, as shall be referred to as within 90 days after the passage of such laws, rules, and regulations shall elect to remove and actually remove from the said nations respectively. And should the said laws, rules, hold on one second. Okay. And should the said laws, rules, and regulations not be made by the legislature of the said nations respectively within 2 years from the ratification of this treaty, then the said sum of $300,000 shall cease to be held in trust for the said Choctaw and Chickasaw nations and be held for the use and benefit of such said persons, and be held of such said persons of African descent as United States shall remove from the said territory in manner of the United States shall deem proper. The United States agreeing within 90 days from the expiration of the said 2 years to remove the said nations all such persons of African descent as may be willing to remove. Those remaining or returning after having been removed from said nations to have benefit of said sum of $300,000 or any part thereof, but shall be upon the same footing as other citizens of the United States in the said nation. So they had United States rights. The said nations further agree that all Negroes not otherwise qualified, disqualified, or disabled shall be competent witness in all civil and criminal suits and proceedings in the Choctaw and Chickasaw courts, any law to the contrary notwithstanding, and they fully recognize the right of the contracts of their labor which the law should aid them to enforce, and they agree on the part of their respective nations that all laws shall be equal in their operation upon Choctaws, Chickasaws, and Negroes, and that no distinction affecting the latter shall at any time be made, and that they shall be treated with kindness and be protected against injury. And they further agree that while the said freedmen now in the Choctaw Chickasaw nation remain in the said nations respectfully, they shall be entitled to as much land as they may cultivate for the support of themselves and families in cases they do not support themselves and families by hiring, not interfering with existing improvements, not existing improvements without the consent of the occupant, it being understood that in the event of making the laws, rules, and regulations, aforesaid, the 40 acres aforesaid shall stand in place of the land cultivated and last aforesaid. Cherokee Peasy, what's up, baby? Much love to you. Much love. Much love. Hold on, let me drop this in the chat. I usually put the shit in Discord, but Cav Gills was trolling me on Discord. They be stealing, dropping shit. And these niggas, folks be running out of content. They be running out of content. Hold on, let me get you in here. Hold on a second. So there's that. What's up, Tom?
How you doing, Phoenix?
I'm chilling. What's happening?
Yeah, that's some valuable information.
Yeah, you know, just being objective. I think this is very interesting how this wording and this documentation changed. And it's new to me the same as it's new to everybody else because I know we've read it before. And if you definitely look at some of my old stuff, you'll see that I'm reading from the direct treaties. And it definitely doesn't say that. So yeah, I think that was pretty interesting. And again, this is happening during these pandemic times or whatever. But be that as it may, none of that really even matters. If you have the ancestry, you have currently what's happening is the Dawes patent. But here's what I don't like about it because it does disenfranchise the actual freedmen that have the Indian ancestry. Okay. And it also bothers me because that still would have a lot to do with manipulation as far as who else was sitting on the land. So just because they were settled on some of the land that was leased does not mean that they were a part of the nation. So within the confines of them being a sovereign government, having to establish a legislature, executive, and a judicial branch, right? So this means that they are responsible for their own prisoners as well as the other little nuances, protecting the borders from, other Indians, especially Plains Indians, and keeping peaceful relationships, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Things that are other, and then of course the rights of suffrage, not to be intimidating them out of their right to be able to testify and all these other things. And of course, there's jerking them out of their contracts, right? So now these are people that have contract labor that wasn't expressed versus the people that were descendants of who these slaves were. So you have the group of people that are getting paid or deserve wages, right? Because now the union has to negotiate their contracts, right? Not only that, the United States also guarantees that the Choctaw and Chickasaw Nation has to guarantee those contracts. So I just find that really interesting. But for all of these people to now indicate that why that they are freedmen just by rite of passage of being black is preposterous, and it's a lie, and it's absolutely a lie.
So what would you think about like the freedmen? No, not freedmen. The Freemasons that would like pretend to be Indian and go to these reservations and team up with certain tribal members and elect them to be like grandfathers within their Freemason organization and try to use that freedmen ordeal to kick out or Africanize their Negro members?
Well, again, I know we have different admixtures, Scottish, European ancestry, French, Huguenot, whatever. A lot of that stuff comes with, the territory, especially with patriarchal views and things that came along with commerce. One thing that I do understand, and it makes it, when you understand the agreement to do commerce. And that's really why the United States was formed. The United States was formed to be the accountant of all of America's affairs. This is why we are also supposed to regulate commerce with Congress. And it was always important to disenfranchise us for that reason, right? So they took the rights away unless we submitted to being something else. This is why even slaves had 3/5 of a person. You can still take 2 of them and get a vote that a free person of color couldn't have.
So wouldn't with that whole 5 civilized tribe thing, who would be those slaves that were of African descent, or would these slaves be their own people that they're enslaving?
This is a very interesting question, specifically if they may have acquired them from Texas. Now, think about it, the time of the Trail of Tears, especially because they won't be able to attach that to the people that were in the South, right? And that's what's so striking about it, because now when you have this influx of FBA and ADOS people, and just generally Black people jacking the whole Freedmen story, and a lot of them are doing that without a land patent. They're doing that without the genealogical information. So with that being said, there's still a few different areas of suspect activity, in addition to the people themselves not really being taken care of the way that they're supposed to. That's not even included. And I'm not saying that too much about the people that were excluded. And I'm not saying that it was fair that they were excluded, but there's still Title 25, there's still congressional record, and there's still some other variables that would provide remedy, right? So this is why there's not about a lot of reasons to get mad. It's just a lot of work to do.
Another puzzling question would be like, why didn't like these Native Americans that were pushed out to Oklahoma, why didn't they do anything with quote unquote so-called Black Wall Streets or Black owned enclaves that was building up money that got taken away by white supremacists that invaded much later?
Well, that on behalf of whose family? Because that's more or less the people that have the direct tort against them, and that's something that they would have to, take up. You understand what I'm saying? Like, this is how I feel about Juneteenth. Juneteenth is very specific to the people of Galveston, Texas. I don't need to steal Juneteenth, right, to make myself feel valid or whole. That is something that's sacred to a group of people that had an experience that was actually documented, right?
Yeah.
And needs to be celebrated in regards to that. I'm okay with that. That's like, if it's your birthday, I don't need a fucking cake to make me feel like I'm special on your special day. You see what I'm saying? It's like
Yeah.
good behavior to me. So with that being said, I respect Juneteenth, but I respect it as something sacred, specifically to the people that were in captivity beyond the time that they were supposed to.
But the government doesn't respect that, nor immigrants. Like, you have like a guy by the name of Pap who works for House of Africa, and he runs the Juneteenth event out here in Charlotte, and he capitalized off of this holiday that's been started in Galveston, Texas, but he doesn't pay respects nor gives like money back American community within Galveston, Texas. He just brings this out in the North Carolina, which that doesn't really have anything to do with the culture over here.
I mean, but is it obvious, who the descendants are? Like, because there would be a specific way to channel that and fix that. If it was obvious that everybody knows that these are the people that comprise of the descendants of the people of Galveston, blah, blah, blah. Like, everybody needs to have their own microgroups of acknowledgement and recognition and who and what was their contribution, in America that they're saying. So if they're calling themselves, for instance, foundational Black, what was the foundation of anything? Were they attached to any treaties, any warfare, anything useful that was for the benefit of the United States, right? Um,
Yeah.
and good luck proving that everything was against their chagrin. It is against their chagrin of what it is that they may perceive as slavery versus what may have really been the real story of their tangible bloodline relatives. Right. And I think that always kind of gets skipped over because everybody's got unique details and things to share and torch and things that require or do would determine if they are, owed some sort of redress of grievances. And I say it that way. And it's a redress of grievances based off of a law that the United States wrote, right?
Mm.
Or a law that is tangible and easy to prove. For instance, there is, let me say, okay, for example, there are instances that happened and occurred in Mississippi from 1865 up until February 3rd, I think, in 2013, that may have been considered servitude, involuntary servitude. In regards to them not really abolishing slavery in Mississippi in its totality until 2013. So there are some recent things or grievances that I am certain that people in the state of Mississippi have that are unique to them, doesn't have anything to do with me in New York or California, but it's completely unique to specific communities there that prove that slavery is still happening. And this is why they were lazy with the pen. So if these big interest groups that are looking for a check to capitalize, they're not doing the research or directing political avenues to look in specific places of a guaranteed win, right? And that would be a guaranteed targeted win. But because it's specific to the people of Mississippi, it's not juicy enough for these Black people to sink their teeth into, kind of stick to it, see their self through it, and in its entirety and totality, and then go on to the next war, victory, whatever. You know what I'm saying? That's
Yeah. But what puzzles me is, why would, like, you mentioned Seminoles earlier, how would they own slaves if they all runaways and not a part of the U.S. government? like the other tribes, like the Muskogees and the Choctaws and the Cherokee. They weren't all friendlies towards those white people that was handpicking them as model minorities. They were, and then when you get to like our people that's classified as Seminoles, they get they get hyphenated as hyphenated Black Seminoles. Which, does that make any sense? If Seminole, Cimarron, and Maroon all are the same definitions, meaning red and runaways?
Yeah, and then there's also the instance of the people that stayed behind, right? Even though they lost tons of land in what we now call Florida and Georgia. But again, I think that this little flim flam that just got pulled out, I think it's amazing. And it definitely wasn't worded like that, but at this point, it can't get any more clearer than what's now in that document. So for shits and giggles, this is what they now have to subscribe to. Otherwise, now it should be a matter of them petitioning their governments for more information and specific release of records, right?
Yeah, and you have like tribes that are Muskogean that were classified historically as Negroes or mulatto and colored back then before they even brought in like Africans. And when you go down there to places like the South Carolina History and Archives Center, that serves as like a registry of vital statistics and a museum at the same time, they mention in their history museum place, or even in their gift shop books that they offer, that when they actually brought in Africans, they were like a minute population, and the ones that got brought in, they all died out from disease, and they were mainly using Indian tribes as slaves. And when you actually look into the history, you'll find like one African per plantation out of a whole bunch of Indian slaves.
I'll tell you what, I mean, it's neither here nor there at this point, but I do know, so for now there's no ex post facto, and of course the Constitution has now been altered, so there's really nothing that people can do about it, especially us on the outside looking in. That's definitely something within the confounds of those nations that they're going to have to straighten out. But the language was absolutely different, but that still does not insinuate that the different article, because you cannot mix subject matter, and they kind of made Article 3.
What you say?
Article 3 pretty clear. It is also clear that Article 4, because in that treaty they have made, they even with their new language, they have made Article 3 pretty clear, but they've also still made a distinction for freedmen that would be included in that treaty. So therefore, at the inception of the Dawes Rolls, it would still be unlawful and go against the treaty as per what they were actually going to do for the freedmen, right? It didn't need to be structured or manipulated by the Dawes Rolls to initiate the action. And if it did, then if in fact it did, then that's something that they would probably need to express, especially to these niggas that's saying that they freedmen and shit, so that they can stop hooting and hollering and acting like somebody hiding something from them. Because that is actually not true.
And with the word freedman, what does that actually mean by definition or early etymological meaning? Did it mean anything of having actual African descent, or was it just something of somebody being converted into a Protestant or something like that?
It specifically means someone who was emancipated, right? Or freed from some sort of bondage, contractual obligations. It specifically means that. So whether legal action of manumission, there's going to be documentation, specifically because certain states require that before you manumit, you have to go through General Assembly, different, court proceedings, whatever it was that they would have to go through. They started to, especially after the immediate when they started to write the laws that you could no longer enslave American Indians. But they never went back at the point where they say you can no longer enslave American Indians for life, as they once did after they already enslaved people for life at that point. Now they're saying they can no longer do it. And this is where our descent, like from Jane Gibson and other Indian tribes that we descend from, these are some of the interesting stories of how our free status came about, specific to those particular types of laws. But the only thing is, with those particular laws, they never went back and covered the people that they already blended with the others. See what I'm saying? They never went and corrected it. It was just like, okay, so now we can't enslave Indians anymore. Okay, great. All right, we can't do that anymore. But they never went back and said, okay, so wait a minute, all the people that we called Negro and mulatto and everybody else, we never did call them Indian. So, all right, well, just those families, we just won't enslave those families. But if they don't remember, then they'll get enslaved because they'll just be like everybody else. But for the ones that know, it's almost as if they lose their a family attachments to their cultural attachments to their heritage, the suffering that happens. And that's real time, and also biblically. Same thing. You motherfuckers don't respect their honor, their mother and their father, and they suffer fucking dearly. So
why do the revisionist historians like the Skip Gates or the Claudio Sant that writes these books about, oh, Indians was enslaving Africans and that the Indian was immune from slavery and that only the African Bantu was the majority slave who got raped by a white man? Why do they sit up there and try and say that freedman is an African?
They have to make that attractive. When in fact, when they look at it, the people that they were calling African up until 1815 were not the Negroes that they're thinking about. The people of Negro land were Arabic looking, very Middle Eastern, if you will. Okay, so that's what they failed to understand. And they had different political views, predominantly Muslim. Okay. So that too was in Negro land, and they had green eyes. A lot of them had very curly hair, looked very different than what they thinking. Uh, you know,
Are you describing like the Mysticos that went over there to Africa by way of
I'm
like
talking about the
Spaniards and Portuguese sending in like Caribbean entities?
no.
Or
I'm talking about the people that come from Libya, where they called Negro land. That was Libya.
Niger and Morocco, places like that?
Yes. North Africa, where the free white people are. Right?
No, that comes into clarity. That comes into clarity. I'm gonna keep that in mind.
Where the free white people are. So real that they had to do what? Create the Suez Canal in order to add some people and separate. Because they still in the interest, and these must have been allies because the Algonquins actually named the word caucus. So for us to send them to the Caucasus Mountains, that might have been a place that we found it. Right?
Keep in mind that those North Africans that you were describing, they are of Ottoman Turk descent. Those are like Mongolians by way of Attila the Hun and Genghis Khan coming in through like the so-called
And
Middle East,
also
the
the
Western,
admixture of
Eastern Europe, and
also admixture
Africa.
of people that are European descent as well.
Yeah.
Right, that had to flee, and some were banished into North Africa, into those colonies.
Yep.
Right? And they kept getting pushed down further into the interior. So keep in mind, they sent a bunch, about 80 white prostitutes. They sent white people also to Sierra Leone when Britain had started their expulsion. To Sierra Leone. If you look at those ship records, there's white women. They sent like 80 prostitutes to Sierra Leone. Exile Island, everybody got to go. And those were the leftovers that lingered around. They didn't go to the other British colonies like Australia or Trinidad or Jamaica or any of the other British colonies. They wound up having to take what was left, and they all got the boot And a lot of them were your people from North America or the United States, right? That got kicked out after the Revolutionary War. So about 100,000 people had to leave the United States after the Continental Army defeated Britain. So after overcrowding London then is the space where they are now able to, some were able to choose Jamaica or other British colonies. And then there's the West that got sent to
Another thing is, why don't the Pan Africans and the FBAs look into the Manila Galleon factor, like Mary Ellen Pleasance, who was here in the South that funded John Brown's rebellion? Apparently, her ancestry was Polynesian.
I'll tell you what, we don't really talk about the transpacific slave trade too much. And I guess more so they don't believe that it may pertain to them. And it would only makes sense to people that don't know shit about genealogy, not realizing that it's important to know. Not only is it important to know, definitely to have the first hand account. And this is what they'll never be able to do. I don't care what people say, how much they fucking study, if they don't understand the dynamics of migration, family, genealogy, they will not understand how to absorb and place themselves in the timeline. They won't be able to do it. So it'll always sound like we're running off on tangents when really we're helping people to be able to process the myriad of things that were happening in succession of the other. You know what I'm saying? Not just these isolated incidents, because there's things that happen to us on a whole in a macro level, and then there's also those things that happened on a micro level that affect some of us, and then there's the issue of the nano things that happen that have nothing to do with everybody else, right? So with that being said, I think that can y'all hear me?
It's going in and out. But ultimately, not every Black American or FBA is going to get reparations by just simply claiming that their ancestors came off a slave ship or taking a DNA test. It's not going to happen that way. You got to like connect yourself to somebody that was integral at being like a chattel on somebody's plantation property.
Yeah, well, when they say that they were enslaved by Indians, they have to be specific. And again, there's more than just civilized tribes. You have to put on mute. Feedback. They have to be specific as to who they're talking about, because the poor monkey didn't have anything to do with them. The Madamuskeet didn't have anything to do with whatever it is that their grievance is. You see? And then they end up shadowboxing, and they need to know specifically who the hell are talking about.
Yeah, like for instance, they use photographs of like Kitty Cloud Taylor's baby picture where it has like that black girl that's in the picture next to some Mongol style natives and Kitty Cloud Taylor. Well, they'll try and use that, but actually she's of a Ute Plains Indian, and they'll say that, oh, Indians was enslaving Africans, or they'll use Chief Glass or somebody that's from the Buffalo Soldiers era time when they was mixing in with the Apaches or the Navajos and stuff like that, and say, oh, that's representation of the natives owning slaves.
You know, everybody got their story. You know what I'm saying? Not only do they have their story, people need to find out what it is. Hold on, they said I'm in the matrix. Hold on 1 second. I'm gonna refresh. Hold on.
Chat, is there problems on my end, or is it just the platform?
I'm back. Is that right? Is that right?
Can everybody hear Phoenix?
Drop a one. Yeah, I think it's better. So you can hear me, Tyron?
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear. It was just coming in and out earlier.
Yes, I had to go back out and I went back in. But definitely people got to hold on to their folks. They got to make sure that they definitely watching over their folks. These niggas is stealing freedmen, stealing stories. They even stealing slaves and shit. They even stealing slave stories. So I know for a fact it's important that people hold on to their genealogy, and they stop worrying about all that other shit because they're gonna need people that they have to against, and that's the interesting intricacies that come with this shit. The whole 6 degrees of separation. People got to get a better understanding. The colorism and the thievery. I don't watch Aboriginals still fucking
Yeah.
some really remarkable shit. Even to the point that they are really ridiculous, rather extreme, radical in scope and genealogy. Confidence in each other. It's not worried about what other people are doing. As long as they don't directly do it to you. And to me, these motherfuckers actually tried to piss in my Kool-Aid. And I wasn't even.
I don't get that shit either on that Aboriginal side because that's not right. Because you bring in the facts.
Oh, some facts don't really matter to people that have been spreading nonsense and, been able to, talk that specific shit that people apparently like to hear, the gossipy shit, and sometimes that shit passes the time for folks that don't feel confident in what their genealogical findings are. So they need other shit to deal with.
Yeah, I get it because you can't just put yourself in like a Amaru She Olmec thing. You have to actually connect yourself to like your people and where they were in their tribe. Like for my people example, what I found in my genealogy is that I'm a Platte, I'm a Rapier, I'm a Westmoreland, I'm a Rice, um, yeah, Corbett. And when I found out what my people on my side, like my mom's side, they would come from the Carolinas, Chicora in particularly. And what we found out is we're either Kasubo, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, um, and I think Yamasee with one of those lineages within the Muskogees. And on my father's side, we're still getting the kinks out with that one because some people claim it's either a Lumbee or Cherokee or something, but we're still doing the research on that. But I know all my relatives, who they are, and some of the Europeans and the Chinese people, but it's still a work in progress. But you can't just
It'll
claim.
never stop. If we live to be 150 years old with sound mind and body and still get to do genealogy, we still not going to cover the entire family line.
Yeah.
That's facts. But yeah, thank you for stopping through. I'm going to drop the link. Get somebody else up here to chop it up. Always a pleasure. I'll catch up with you soon. Keep up the good work. Keep up the genealogy tree. Make the folks proud. You know what I'm talking about? Make the folks proud. Oh, I see that. Because I just do that and throw that up there. Never know how that shake out. Never know how it shake out. Never know. And you just be related to these same people that you end up, cursing out on social media. Gotta make them understand vicariously, right? Through relevant facts and shit like that. But all that being angry means you ain't really confident in what it is that you have. You can find resolve. You can sit there and think of a way to find a solution to shit. You know what I'm saying? All that spending time being fucking angry and holding on to that shit gets in the way. Definitely gets in the way. But again, these motherfuckers is claiming every motherfucking body. They very dangerous. And what does this mean for those that are not the same folks, right? Because prior to that, they was already manumitted prior to 1866. So they can't be talking about those people. And then again, Article 4 is always a different subject. So now within this subject, they do address the freedmen, which is very different than who they address in the other section. Quite interesting, to say the least. Quite interesting, to say the least. I did drop the link. Hold on, wait a minute. They dropped the link. So yeah, you got all these fools running around, and then they don't speak for the other tribes. So you got the Delaware, you got the Shawnee, the Kickapoo, the Arkansas, the Kansas, all these other different tribes in the interim. Not all of them left and went down into Mexico, even though quite a bit of them did. I told you I found the Chipuli family in Mexico directly across the fucking Gulf. Like it's almost if they got a villa or a vista view of where they used to be, right? Amazing. How do people track those folks down? Have they done anything? Those treaties that were signed with the church, and what about the treaties that were specifically with the Spanish and their tribes, the Catholic Church? Different treaties that are outside of the United States still exist. There's also treaties with France that still exist. There's different, like I'm sure there's still Dutch treaties that still exist in some of the New England states, right? New Amsterdam, New Jersey was New Sweden, considered New Sweden. Of course, Nova Scotia is New Scotland, and also Columbia, right? That's what Columbia is. The what do they call them? Starts with a C. Starts with C. You know what those what do they call them? The Scots. Like emblem of America, like when they used to draw those plates. Not Arcadian. What's the word? Emblem of America. Let's see. What was their thing? You remember those? The Scots. God damn! I'm thinking. They had emblem of America. They had all different emblems, and I think this one was particularly for Scotland. Not Cascade. It starts with a C. But anyway, this is the same thing they thought that they were going to do. Colombia would also be considered a new Scotland. Modern day Bolivia, perhaps. That whole Darien Peninsula. And I know specifically leading to where modern day Panama, Peru, that specific region, Ecuador, and those areas. It's fucking with me right now because I definitely want to talk about that emblem, and I can't think of it and start to see. Having a whole brain fart. Cousin Ish, what's happening, beloved one? How are you?
Peace and blessings, cuz. How you doing this evening, Phoenix Moon?
I am doing well. How about you?
I'm doing well, doing well. Wanted to stop through and, of course, show full support to you. I'm so proud of the works that you do and the way that you represent the coaches. So I just want to make sure, to let the people know that, of course, happy to.
Yes, thank you so much, so much. I love the work you did. And the stand-up dudes you are defending these borders of Indian country. Can't nobody do it like you do. I appreciate you so much. I really do.
You're very welcome. Yes, happy to be on this journey with you. I like the breakdown of what you were dealing with, with the Oklahoma situation. I was fortunate enough to actually be invited as one of the guests when Maxine Waters was dealing with the Creek, freedmen. Um, and there were some things that were put on the table for her to address specifically, as far as just trying to do her part to apply pressure. So those were some things that were prerequisites for us to have that town hall meeting with her and to have that audience with her to take back to Washington, D.C. So, it was a good meeting and stuff, last year. And you started seeing some benefits like the Seminole freedmen getting their full health rights, returned back to them and things like that. So there's some other things, of course, to still be addressed, but it was a step in the right direction.
And that's important. That is very important. But I do notice that there is a whole bunch of outsiders that are pretending to be down. And I think that that's also very dangerous and invasive.
Yeah, that concern is legitimate. The freedmen themselves, as far as for the Creek freedmen, they're an actual band. So, you do have an actual membership of having to prove genealogy in order to be a member of the band. But you're correct. I mean, a lot of times you can get lumped into, or you find people trying to move in that space, you know what I mean? Trying to reap the benefits. But they do have an actual criteria, to be a card carrying member as far as the Freedmen band.
What do you feel about the day they find out that some of those freedmen were non melanated people?
Yeah, I mean, well, it depends on what the criteria is as far as the band that's being represented. Now, the criteria for, the Cherokee freedmen are going to be different. So, everyone's a little bit different. And to be honest with you, the Dawes Rose was just so outright racist. They falsified so much of the record. So a lot of that still has to be deciphered. An example is you have my relative that was Silas Jefferson. He's on the Creek rolls as Creek by blood, but his siblings who have the same exact mother and the same exact father, they were put on the Freedmen rolls. Make it make sense.
This is what I mean. This is what I mean. Now, also, that also includes some state Negroes that are not Indian by blood that ended up being freedmen and having allotments, and they're not supposed to have the same interest in the land. That was my point. That was my point.
Yes,
That
and
prohibited
that's
people pre-existing that have had this problem all this time before that they recently started going to court, but they never made those retroactive redress of grievances right.
right, and that's the valid concern. When I hear about the points that you make, as well as what Brother Waltho makes and others, that's correct. You don't have rights to the soil. And like I said, you're trying to move in the space of, and you have imposters that come in and are now trying to push their own agendas under the umbrella of these terms also. So you're right. There's still a lot of unraveling that has to take place, as well as pointing out the fraud. Now, when you have the groups that are like the Cherokees, the Cherokees do admit that they have outright $5 Indians on their council. They admit that they've proven through the genealogical history that these are Europeans. So, and yet they still don't kick them out and still allow them to still reap all the benefits. You know what I mean? So, yeah, there's just a lot of fraud that took place and taking place in the here and now. There still has to be, unraveled.
And it hasn't been uh, addressed. I guess that's what we're here for, because the things that the way the objectivity and the view that we have is a lot different than they've ever been approached before. So if nothing else, there's going to be some statement out that's definitely going to occur as a result of the push and pull.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think the confederations that we form, even outside of Oklahoma, it carries a lot of weight. They see that there's a reckoning that's taking place all over, and there will be some things that will be addressed on a larger scale. But like I said, as we're taking it one step at a time, whether it be with Black Wall Street, whether it be what took place in the southeastern tribes or what took place on the East Coast and the northeastern tribes, there's going to be a reckoning that will take place.
Indeed, I do think that it is rather interesting that they are looking to develop different ways of documenting the anthropological reports to do a little more justice to who they say are Native Americans, because they did finally admit that they have not been keeping it real when it comes to that particular science. And I said that to say we know that we can expect to find ourselves historically dated back long ago within them documenting things properly with respect to the areas that we know that our ancestors have been in for since time immemorial. Which also leads to my next point. How do you feel about the colorism, the extreme colorism, even down to calling insinuating everybody that looks Latin or so-called Mongolian to be a $5 Indian with absolutely zero connection to us or any of the tribes that we're related to, and the complete disconnect from any possibility that they may have at least one African relative. How do you feel about the way that people express their denial or acceptance of things that they find genealogically that ends up triggering them in these social forums into a whole nother animal? How do you feel about that?
Oh, wow, cousin. That's an excellent question that you asked. I think that the topic of being an American Indian, it takes maturity, it takes honesty, and it takes character in order to kind of get to the truth that you're trying to derive. What I mean is, if you have to be honest as far as not having a preconceived notion of what you're going to expect. And you have to be mature enough to understand, or honest enough to understand, once something gets revealed to you. Because ancestors do speak to you and they do reveal certain things to you when you're looking for them. I'm a firm believer of that. So if you're not mature enough to understand that you're going to uncover something that you may not be ready to withstand, then don't go digging. And if you do find something, you have to have the character in order to admit it and then be able to face it. So you can't just go with colorism. You can't just go with, whatever you think the lineage would be. And too many times people romanticize what the history is. So if you find something and maybe someone will be a slave owner, well, maybe that slave owner owned a slave that may be your ancestor. Okay. So you have slave owners, you have slaves, you have African, you have European. You're going to come across these things in particular if you're from certain tribes that may be triracial in nature. After a certain amount of time, they became a homogeny of a race. They're a mixture, a triracial mixture of people. So you have to be mature enough to kind of understand that particular topic. That's the way that I see it, cuz.
Yeah, because that's on point, cousin. I appreciate that. Because a lot of people are really bothered by the things that don't really matter. And I feel like that's just like a defense mechanism. And people aren't really secure in what it is that they did found. The good, bad, and indifferent. Because we find all of that on this journey,
Yeah, and what happens is that you done jumped out the window and you done wrote a check, and now public eyes are on you and you can't admit that you were wrong. And now you have to kind of keep walking down that path because now you're a victim of your ego and you're not going to admit that you're wrong. Even if somebody presented the facts to you, you're still going to stand 10 toes down on falsehood before you admit that you were incorrect. That's just some typical nigga shit. So you're not mature enough to really have a conversation. You're not mature enough to have the character to say, you know what? Because history is ever revealing. History and mathematics are ever revealing. So if you keep on digging, you're going to come across something. So you don't necessarily speak in absolutes when you're dealing with history. You know, if you're speaking in absolutes, that's the first error. So you always keep an opening for change because something may be revealed to you that you simply did not expect.
Exactly. I definitely glad you pulled up. Always a pleasure. Your presence again, very valid. You've been around for a minute and been a lot of these master teachers, master teacher. So for those people who are asking if they can follow you on Instagram, they're looking to check in on your social media. So definitely let them know where they can find you.
Hey, absolutely. You can find me on Instagram, Ishbay. You can find me on Twitter, Ishbay. You can find me on Facebook, Ishmael Bay. I'm Ishmael Bay everywhere I go. You can also check out my website, which is firsttribenation.com. Again, firsttribenation.com. And we have a forum there, a lot of links that deals with American Indian history from our perspective. And always at the service of the people. So again, Cousin Phoenix Moon, I want to let you know that I love you. I'm here to support you. And if there's anything that I may do, please feel free to holler at me. Okay.
It's the same as mutual. The same for you, beloved. You be blessed.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Peace and love.
Peace and love. Really strong brother. Really strong brother. Really strong brother. You gotta appreciate them. Gotta appreciate them. I just hope his style is contagious. That shit it's really solid. Much respect and admiration. Yeah, brother Cherokee Peasy. It's been years. We never got to sit down. One day we gonna sit down and we just gonna just kick it like brother and sister, and we just gonna talk. I'm telling you, we have to make that happen. I love watching you, and where my boy Saved and Sanctified. He is hilarious. So I'm on TikTok the other day, and I end up on somebody's live, and there's these other guys there. I don't know how I ended up there, but I don't really do much on TikTok. And my stuff, I don't know how to do the algorithm. So I posted something dope, throwback of Brother Shabazz. And I guess because it has nigger in it, TikTok didn't let it go through. But anyway, I end up on there, and I was on somebody's live. I was on quite a few of them. And I just was skipping through, and then I end up somewhere, and they're talking about nationality and whatever. So there's this other guy, and I guess on TikTok you have to have like 1,000 followers in order to be able to go, on somebody else's live or to be able to go live on TikTok. So as I'm on this brother's channel, I hear one dude talking shit. So I'm talking about, like the Dred Scott decision being repealed with the 14th Amendment. I think I may have said 13th Amendment kind of off the top, but I really meant the 14th. So I go back and I correct where I went wrong, because now I didn't mean to, but I'm talking to the people in the chat. And then, of course, it kind of changed the energy to with the two brothers, the dude that was going live, and this other guy who was, I forget what his name was. He was a Moorish brother. I forget. So anyway, so now the Moorish guy is kind of challenging me. Maybe it's because of the way that I'm saying it in the chat, but I'm not really paying attention to that. I was kind of focused on what I was seeing in the chat. But anyway, so now the one guy said, wait a minute. Now, I guess they looking at my profile. He says, if that's who I think it is, he was like, I think I used a couple of her videos, and that's how my channel went viral. So he was like, everybody that's on this live now, if that's Lil Phoenix Moon, go light her up and go follow her. You got to get your, telling me how to get. So now that was like 2 days ago. So then this morning rather, I'm looking and I have these messages. I don't really know. I don't go on there all the time. Sometimes I can look And and I'll be on that shit for like an hour and a half, and I'm laughing at some of the different things that comes up. But anyway, now I see that I have messages, so now it's those people, and they're showing me how to clip up and chop up my videos in order to be able to bring the information over to the TikTok and Twitter platform. So with that being said, I will be probably paying a little more effort into that, although my sister and my cousin have told me that quite a long time ago, but I guess I just didn't really make the time for it. But there are people over there that respect a lot of our work. Shout out to the dude, I believe his name is Evergreen, but they definitely attributed anything that they've been able to accomplish to the likes of listening to people like myself and Cousin Ish and Top Cats and a bunch of other people that were influential to them, and they're, doing things in their own perspective corner. So I thought that was pretty cool. Some random shit, but it was funny as hell. And I was just like, oh gosh. And he was like, is that really you, Phoenix? It was funny. He was like, nah, I don't even want to, but I think that's it. I feel the energy. I feel like that's you. He said, but because you only got 70, whatever, how many people, I'm not sure if that's you. So he was like, if that is you, like, I just want to give you all your flowers and everybody, a lot of this information and work and stuff like that. So I thought that was pretty cool. So yeah, that happened. Then there was this, the backtracking, the shitty encounter with these FBA angry ass people. And you know what I realized too? A lot of them is rejected BLM people. Instead of, they will take their rage out against the Indian for not dealing with their convoluted stories, but they're not saying anything to the ladies that actually stole them millions of dollars from their organization. They just sound really all over the place, especially considering that they feel that everybody owes them some sort of reparations, even the Indians that didn't have slaves or the ones that were enslaved themselves. So yeah, so that's that. And I noticed a lot of motherfuckers, they're not going to be able to prove. And again, the way you have to, especially with the Dawes laws, it's specific to them. So for people to claim that, they're freedmen from the Pequot or, some other shit like that, you got to come correct. So it's very specific. So if you have your concerns with the Dawes laws, then you need to keep it directed there and only there, because that is a completely different nation, and it's really not up for us to interfere with or tell people how to run their shit. But because and then keep in mind, considering that's contingent upon the Dawes Act, which was illegal, right, and shouldn't have went down. Considering how that goes, because there might be a whole nother washout in the event that that's ever challenged as well. Interesting, food for thought, and I'll put that shit out there. People can mull over it, get mad, whatever. But that's what it is. But you gotta be careful with these black folks, because they mixing a lot of dope, they talking a lot of stuff, and they taking a lot of shit from people, and they trying to just make everybody be attached to some shit that, whether they can prove it or not, they are not going to let some of these stories go. They're going to rape everybody grandmother, everybody grandfather fucked up, and yeah, they're just doing it wrong. Also, they think that your land is their land too, somehow. So if they are really working with something tangible, then there's a way to go about it. And the people that they listen to should be able to direct them properly. Don't just show them a land patent and don't tell them what their next steps are. And definitely don't tell them don't go to their tribe, because that is where it is held in trust. Specifically, if that's what kind it is. Because you can have a land patent and it does not come from the nation. That does not mean that you are a part of that nation. Then there's the other people that have the state land, the United States land patent. Those are your state Negroes. Not the same people. And not to be confused. And definitely not to be any of them people that got selected for 250 during the Doors Rolls. I still think it remains to be seen. And nobody's ever investigated it. If you're going to investigate the Pilgrims, you better investigate the Negroes that would have been able to help them pull it off. And also look at the people that got violated. Those are the ones that were the real people that were, supposed to be compensated. So now it ends up that they end up just getting skipped past, and they're just going to do this other thing because that's just what folks seem to be dealing with right now. No. That ain't how that shit go. So they skip past giving the other people some act right during that window of them creating Oklahoma and bringing it into statehood. So, and again, in the interim, there's all these other tribes and plethora of other people that are there as well. And did they lease the land? Do they have particular areas that are exclusive and where they'll never be removed again? Even though they may have had to move into that territory, which means somebody else had to move out. Somebody else had to move out. So, really interesting shit. We need to get into this Confederate shit and see what that was hitting for. They were shunned after that for quite some time, so they were excited to be able to sign up for the draft of World War I, considering that was the first time that they were even considered for service after they were borderline considered traitors or treasonous or whatever, or, defectors. That's what you want to call it. But new treaties, new things, they rewrite and shit. I think it's interesting. But definitely those Confederate details give a lot of perspective on history. You see who made it back, who didn't. And I think it's really interesting, again, that they omitted these laws from U.S. Code 8, Title 8, Aliens and Nationality Act, and that would be regarding freedmen. So now there's another thing. So if they're saying they have African descent, do they have naturalization records, right? Or did they unlawfully perpetuate the African slave trade after 1808? Because it was unlawful to even be in any of the territories and states of severalty, whether even at the split of the United States and the Confederacy. Jefferson Davis also said the exact same thing. So with that being said, where did these folks come from? And it's still an unlawful act that took place. So it's real questionable, and I know that a lot of these questions haven't been raised. So that still means that the original people, such as Issues Grandpa Silas, they came up short when they should not have, so that the other people can live a little longer. So this is what I mean. So there's still some recompense that is deserved in different areas and affects people in different ways. So now, what is the dilemma with the people that know that they are of, let's say, Cherokee descent, but somehow they find their folks on the Choctaw rolls or on the Chickasaw rolls, or, just outside of what it is that you may have thought? And how did they get absorbed? Why did they get absorbed? For what reason and how? Definitely knowing where you came from prior to that is going to be important as well, especially if all of these things that are questionable come up in litigation. You definitely want to make sure you know what it is that it's hitting for, and be prepared to answer questions with great detail and with swiftness, no delay in how you articulate and shoot your shot. Playtime is over. Now it's time to get your family. Spend more time trying to convince your family of how Indian they are, not these niggas on the internet. You know what I'm saying? Those are the ones that's the least of your concern. It's the ones that could give you a kidney that got the same motherfucking connections to the grandma that got the land, the grandpa that got the land. That's who you got to worry about for the next 7 generations, and how to get some of these bum ass curses off, and how to step back into that generational success. We always talk about generational curses. Now we're trying to promote generational success, right? For the next 7 generations, to where they'll be so busy being themselves that they won't know that the rest of the world don't know they're not, or don't thinks that they're anything else. By the time they figure out, there's not going to be the same worries. Everybody's going to know who they are. There won't be no question of that, right? The culture, the heritage attached to it, the preservation thereof, that'll be their interest, as they also insert themselves in these industries so that they're able to have a better understanding and supervisory operations, of what our states and the commercial activities that we're going to establish. It has to be about money and commerce and what it is that we're going to leave them, in the instructions on how to get more, how to maintain, how to minimize, and how to maximize, and when and what is important to do when at which time. A lot of things they can spend their money on, and it don't have to be popping bottles every day. Definitely don't have to be that. Getting down on 9-10 acres of some land, that's some real balling shit. That's the real ball, long-term goal, to where these children aren't intimidated by what their later on responsibilities are going to be. We're going to just spring it on them after we get them all digital and shit, and then say, okay, it's going to be a food shortage. Now we got to grow potatoes. Daddy never told us that. Mama ain't never told us about it. Now we got to know. The little science projects, they showed us how to grow a potato in a styrofoam cup, even though the fucking styrofoam cups is toxic in its motherfucking self, but whatever. We don't learn how to do it over the mason jar with the toothpicks and shit like that. Garlic, you can keep growing, stuff like that in the house. Garlic grows on top of itself if you have it the shit long enough. Right? You can keep doing that. But now sustainability, we're going to spring it on the kids, or we're going to ease it on them and let them know what their new responsibilities are going to be. It ain't going to be that go to school and get a good job shit they told us. I mean, it kept the fucking lights on, but it didn't make us happy. And we know that that wasn't enough. That was just enough to keep us busy enough so that we wouldn't zero in on these fucking things. Hoping that, just the whole Black African American experience gets the best of these motherfuckers that, survived the fucking 80s and 90s, man. So they didn't think we were going to do it. They definitely don't expect us to transfer this shit down to our progeny to where this is all they aspire to do. Grandma and grandpa business. And that's irrespective of whether or not you're Indian or not. That's everybody in the world that is in a situation of oppression and usurpation and all of the things that they say they hate. Civic engagement and the ability to call shots. That's one thing that we have as American Indians that has to be reckoned with. And you know what? We don't need all so-called 40 million Black Americans to know how Indian they are. We just got to know who our family is. Because now we got clans, and those clans do what? Make nations, right? My mama and daddy, my siblings, aunts, uncles, and cousins, nieces, nephews, it's about 90 of us. right? Cousin Davida, just under her, she got 3 generations under her already, and still got her matriarch still alive. She in the middle. Numbers. Thank you, Dana. Numbers. Family. Working some shit out. All the things that frustrate us in the world. Working out some shit. What can we get to as far as being Indians without the other folks that we're related to? And for some people, it seems impossible. It seems impossible to resolve an amicable situation where the family is on board, especially, with regards to the dysfunction and shit. But again, one thing we're going to have to do is take a lot of these emotions out, and it only hurts because of people we love and people we care about. Right? But the effort, the energy doesn't have to be in vain. Because the same energy somebody had for 10 hours of talking about Kevin Samuels is the same energy checking on the cousin that seems sad all the time, making sure today ain't the day they check out. Always a good day to check in on somebody. And you try. Shit. It's all important. It's all important. And definitely the children, the grandchildren, the adult kids, you figure out a way to connect. That's hard. You need support. Being able to do that, being able to redirect them from different things, right? And also giving them the upside to the culture. Like the shit is so fucked up, but there's explanations for things, and sometimes it's a esoteric explanation. Are people okay with that? And when I say esoteric, I don't mean dogmatic, right? But a lot of things that we're known for, they don't tell the truth about how we're known for it. Like now, I always call them medicine men because that's what they would have been called. They call them drug dealers now, you know what I'm saying? They can sell us Tylenol, but he can't sell us a bag of weed. It's different, I'm just saying. Everything that they make profit off of that was supposed to be the downside and the negative portions of our culture, which had positive values, at some point, it was so radiant that it was enough for them to steal it and fucking sell it back to us. So there's definitely still things that, elements that we add to it that other people don't. And being able to capitalize in our industries, whatever they may be. The beauty industry completely and solely belong to Americans, so-called Black Americans. Even prior to Madam C.J. Walker, if you look on some of these records, their occupation is barber, hairdresser. The people that got removed from Seneca Village, the Lyons family, they had hair products. They were hairdressers and beauticians and barbers, and they were making a lot of fucking money. And when they got removed from Seneca Village, you'll find them in Rhode Island amongst the Narragansett and other tribes on the 1860 census, Albrose Lyons and Mary Lyons. So, anyway, I digress. Definitely take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and choose your battles carefully. Save the real tears for the real tear times, you know. So, that's it. You know what I'm saying? Just make sure that you preserve your folk shit, because these niggas out here stealing freedmen, they stealing slave stories, they taking everything that ain't nailed down, desecrating things that should be revered as sacred, and maybe they don't mean to hurt you, and they don't even know, they're not even aware that they out here just mobbing through shit for the wrong reasons. Hoping motherfuckers find a little bit of peace with the information, some security in what it is that they're finding, and a vision to support what it is that they, the beautiful things that they wish to see for themselves, for their family, for their progeny, because it's important. And just look at it as, even if you're the only one that cares, it only takes one motherfucker to put it in motion. If you build it, they will follow. Make it attractive. My mother said, make it by attraction and not promotion. And now look at how many people are interested in genealogy, right? Before, when you mention it, they used to go straight to the DNA. Now when you talk about genealogy, if you notice, people are like, yeah, and I found a record. They know about the records now. They know that records are important. That is the understanding that we put out. So when we think they're not paying attention, there's no way around the talking points. And there's no way around family. So as dysfunctional as you think it is, we need them to get out this fucking oppressive hole, right? Ain't that crazy? It's all gonna go back to them anyway. Gotta get it done. And that's what racism is. And if we practice that, solely taking care of ourselves, each other's, and start taking little fucking clues from the Amish, these people coexist and they're more fucking off the radar. Don't get no more private, personal, and respected than the Amish. Nobody is interested in vandalizing their shit. Nobody's interested in fucking bothering the Amish. They just coexist. They just coexist. And nobody fucks with them. Nobody's mad that they're here. So, with that being said, it's interesting. Not saying be like the Amish, but definitely taking a page out of their discipline book can't hurt. Can't hurt. I'm out of here. I'm about to go sit with my little papoose. She getting big, y'all. She thinks she grown. She's stretching them legs, and she got this little thing she do when her father comes home. It's the cutest little thing. I could tell when she want her mama and when she just want to be bothered with grandma. I'm learning her and she learning me. It's so cute. This shit is a whole nother next level, and I'm loving every second with her. Every second. Looking at the clothes she can't fit no more. Just how quickly things go. It's amazing. But anyway, y'all take care of yourselves. I know it's getting late out there. Enjoy your evening. Still a little bit of sunlight out here. Definitely gonna sit somewhere and watch it all go down. That's what I love to do. Y'all take care of yourselves. Until the next time, Chipi Salachi K.